Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Saturday, January 3rd, 2026. So I already had completed the video you're about to see, other than this part right here. And for obvious reasons, this is kind of a breaking story, and I'm going to cover it just a little bit here, but I'm already making my video for Sunday night, which includes Candace Owens begging the CIA to knock it off. And, Erica Kirk, you know, being Rock thinking that J.D. Vance and Erica Kirk are the same people. So there's some great stuff in the video I'm already making today. But this happened here, and I just want to point out a few little things today, and then for this video, and then I'll go deeper into it for my video on Sunday night.
It's 9 a.m. on the East Coast, and if you're just joining us this morning, we have major breaking news. Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro has been captured by U.S. forces. President Trump confirming the large-scale U.S. military operation overnight.
Attorney General Pam Bondi confirming Maduro and his wife face drug and weapons charges in the U.S. And about 20 minutes ago...
Okay, so, capturing foreign leaders is fucked. Like, this is World War III kind of stuff. And we're talking about the amount of resources that are there. They have all this natural resources, and again, I'll document this more tomorrow in my video for Sunday. But there's oil there, but there's also precious metals and things like that, right? So there's a reason why America has an interest in Venezuela, and it doesn't have anything to do with drugs. They don't give a shit how many fucking drugs kill your retarded kids, your retarded kids. They don't care. Trump doesn't care. The U.S. government doesn't care. CIA doesn't care. None of these people, right? They don't care how many Americans die from drug overdoses. I mean, drug overdoses have been going on forever. Whenever they're using drugs as an excuse, they're just trying to keep you safe. I've talked about that. When you work in treatment centers or, in a psych ward, we're just trying to keep you safe. Like, if you hear those words, you're fucked, right? We're just trying to keep you safe from yourself, right? And so, so that's always bullshit. And Trump's a blind sack of shit. There's natural resources there. America wants a piece of them, Trump and them. And, this could, who knows how this could affect whatever, the world, going in and just grabbing, this is colonization type shit. And, hasn't been done overtly like this in years. But just grabbing a leader off the street because he's not capitulating to your demands. And, just slapping some bullshit charges on him. That's like, whatever. And again, I'll cover this more in the next video. But what I really want to get to is what Trump says about this.
Vice President J.D. Vance revealing President Trump offered Maduro multiple off-ramps.
All this comes after...
So, if he's actually, this is an actual drug dealer, and he's actually done the charges that you're now going to place on him, that he has, in terms of the drugs that are being used in America. And, technically, I don't know how you'd even prove that he's responsible for the drugs coming into America. Like, they're drugs leaving his country, and they are being smuggled into the United States by other people. But, like, for him to be, whatever it is. But let's say he actually did that, and you were offering him off-ramps, so you weren't holding him accountable. Like, you offered multiple off-ramps to a drug dealer, right? But this is the fucked up thing here.
Explosions rocked the capital of Caracas and surrounding states early this morning. President Trump is expected...
So that's rebels that we're funding. They've armed rebels, and they made them do this shit. Like, it was a way to make it look like he's losing control of his country and then going and grabbing the guy, right? Again, but then this part.
To hold a news conference from Mar-a-Lago at 11 a.m. this morning. But first, he joins us now by phone.
I'll cover that news conference in my next video.
And let's get right to the President of the United States, Donald Trump. President Trump, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning.
So you've had quite a busy evening. Tell us about it.
It was slightly busy, I would say. It was very dark all over.
It's funny. Everywhere was dark at night. It was dark.
In Venezuela.
Especially in Venezuela. It was darker there because we just snagged this motherfucker. Yeah, he's not losing his shit at all, this guy.
The team did an incredible job. They rehearsed and practiced Like
They rehearsed and practiced. They rehearsed and practiced. Was it a fucking? Was it a jazz play? Right? Did they have their jazz hands out? They rehearsed. Let's listen to that again. The whole thing. That whole part. Where are we?
So you've had quite.
The team did an incredible job. They rehearsed and practiced like nobody's ever seen. And
Why would anybody see them rehearsing and practicing a covert extraction of a foreign president? Why would they be watching them rehearsing and practice? They rehearse and practice like nobody's ever seen. Nobody should ever see that, right? And so we're using the word rehearse makes it sound like it's fucking fake and staged and some sort of a play. I don't know if they're going to release a video of them taking the guy. Maybe that's part of the thing. But rehearsing in practice, that makes it sound like it's it's not a legitimate thing, which, I mean, most of these things are in one way or another. They rehearsed and practiced like nobody's ever seen. I mean, just a fucking, just an ass clown, this guy.
It's very dark all over, especially in Venezuela. The team did an incredible job. They rehearsed and practiced like nobody's ever seen. And I was told by real military people that there's no other country on earth that can do such a maneuver. If you would...
Maneuver. Like just the braggadocious bullshit here. When they get into where they're just taking leaders because they're not handing over their resources, which this is about, like that, we're going into World War III. 2026 is, this is where we're at, right? Like he's bragging, and now they think that no one's gonna, fight back here. And talking about China, Russia, whoever else, right? But like you start doing shit like this, there's reasons why countries just don't colonize other countries overtly like this, right? And you can do it without, you can do it by just cutting deals or whatever it might be. But this guy wouldn't play ball, and they give him off ramps, but he wouldn't do it. And so now they're charging him as a drug lord, which is, in itself that shows you that they're willing to make a deal with what they're now calling a drug lord, right? So they, that's fake, right? That's bullshit. Like if he's a real drug lord that was killing American people with fentanyl, then you would take him out. Like it's an act of war. Like it's some kind of, he's killing American citizens with whatever they call that, narco-terrorism. He's a narco-terrorist. But now he's like, all right, well, we're kind of deal with a narco-terrorist, but then he didn't capitulate. And so this isn't about any of that shit. It's all lies, right?
Seen what happened. I mean, I watched it literally like I was watching a television show.
And it was like a television show. Again, they rehearsed a television show. That's what Trump said in this interview. Rehearsed television show. Maduro capture is a rehearsed television show. So that's where we're jumping off with this thing. This is day one, first thing, breaking news. Getting it up here on whatever, put it in front of a video I've already completed, and then I'll cover more about this. But right now, we're jumping off with it's a rehearsed television show, right? And so this is,
if you would have seen the speed, the violence, they say that, the speed, the violence, they use that term. It's it was an amazing thing, an amazing job that these people did. There's nobody else could have done anything like it.
Nobody else. Not any fucking, not any you motherfuckers. Fuck you. Fox News, you guys pussies over there. No, you fucking guys could have done this. Just my guys. My guys are the only ones that could rehearse and put on a TV show like this.
You're at Mar-a-Lago right now. How were you able to watch this?
Well, we watched it from a room. We had a room.
We had a room. We were inside a room. We weren't outdoors. We weren't sitting in front of a fucking tree. We weren't on the fucking beach. I wasn't on my fucking yacht. We were actually in a room in Mar-a-Lago. We had a room. And my thing, they've set it up in my room, like where we could get a classified feed in Mar-a-Lago, this fucking place where Jeffrey Epstein used to come and pilfer girls away from me and stuff, and these things that I broke up with them after that. This fucking.
Watched it, and we watched every aspect of it. We were surrounded by lots of people, including generals.
Including generals, and some people, some staff, some waiters, and shit, bringing us hors d'oeuvres, and a couple of golfers, pro golfers that were there. I said, hey, you guys, check this out. we're about to fucking capture Maduro, and these guys have rehearsed for this TV show. And I want you guys to see this TV shows. We had a couple hookers in there.
They knew everything that was happening, and it was very complex, extremely complex.
It was so unfucking believable. The amount of rehearsing and stagecraft, and we had to hire 3 different gaffers for this thing.
whole maneuver, the landings, the number of aircraft, which were massive number.
Massive. It was like fucking 10 million of them. We dropped 10 million aircraft.
The number of helicopters, a different type of helicopter.
So they've just invaded the shit out of another country's airspace. This is an act of fucking war. We're at war with Venezuela, right?
Different type of fighter jets. We had a fighter jet for every possible situation.
We had all of them. We had all of these fighter jets. Everyone just sitting there in case we had to drop a nuke on them, whatever it might have been.
And they just broke in, and they broke into places that were not really able to be broke into.
Exactly. They did the fucking impossible with the rehearsing and acting this TV show.
With steel doors that were put there for just this reason.
For a reason that, like, well, you guys are breaking in our steel doors. I mean, he's behind this guy. I mean, he was in like a pyramidal type of structure with steel doors, and he was locked in a fucking safe. And with our multiple helicopters and our rehearsing and our acting and our TV show and our multiple aircraft and, you know, all these weapons like you've never seen before, we were able to break into his safe and extract him.
And they got taken out in a matter of seconds. I've never seen
seconds.
Anything.
Like they said, hey, we're about to go in. 5 seconds later, we had him, and we were like, oh, that was really fast. I didn't get to finish my fucking little mini hot dogs with the bread around them. My horse ovaries. We were just eating our hors d'oeuvres. It was like over before I was like fucking 2 bites into my hot dog with the fucking with the bread around it.
Like it.
And you were able to watch this in real time.
Yeah, and don't forget, I've done some pretty good ones in other parts of the world. Okay, I've done some pretty good ones.
I've done them. Like, this is me doing them by sitting there stuffing my fat face and watching it on TV at Mar-a-Lago at my 3-star resort.
I've never seen anything like this. I was able to watch it in real time, and I watched every aspect of it.
Every aspect. They had multiple camera angles. We had multi-vision. We had like fucking 15 big TV screens, and I was, you know, with my reptilian eyes, I was able to focus, my spider-like eyes, I was able to focus on each one of the TVs differently.
I listened to the communication between, you know, where we were in Florida and out in the field in Venezuela, and it was amazing to see the professionalism, the quality.
It's just the professionalism is off the charts. It's the professionalism. Let me do that meme here, and then I'll cover the rest of this in the thing tomorrow. But I have that Bill Murray meme.
Look, why should voters give you another chance?
Because it got done before. Oh, no. It's your professionalism that I respect.
It is your professionalism that I respect. It took me a while to remember what that meme was about. It was the Joe Biden, the time it appeared his dentures were loose. That was fucked up. Like, that was a singular debate where he was either something, I don't know what happened to his marble mouth. But anyways, so I'm going to wrap this coverage up here. I already started doing shit for the next video, and that'll be up Sunday night. I'm going to get this one up as soon as possible. The other one might be up at Sunday at like 6 or 7. I don't know. Usually 9 o'clock, but we'll see. And so then Monday will be off, and then we'll see what else is happening with this. But this is a big story. I'll be covering this after I cover the Candace Owens implosion tomorrow. But anyways, here's the video I made yesterday for today. Okay. Greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is the January 1st, and I just completed my video a few hours back. The stuff to do with Candace Owens, Alex Jones, and that guy Mitch Snow, and fucking Candace Owens getting owned and played on that whole thing by the piece of shit Alex Jones. And so it's later at night here. I didn't really want to start my next video. I got the videos coming up tomorrow morning, then I have all day tomorrow, and then whatever. I got 2 days for this video. But I saw this video came up, and it said, massive AstroTurf campaign to shut up Candace Owens. And, you know, these guys, particularly this guy, Kurt Metzger is, I guess they're both comedians. And, I don't think these guys are like, Tucker Carlson level shills or whatever it is, but they're just, well, I'll get into this in a second, right? But I was wondering what they were going to say when this thing with Mitch Snow went south. It's obvious that Candace Owens isn't tweeting shit about this. She knows that she's embarrassed here. And I don't know how it'll go with her audience, and I don't give a shit. Like, none of these things matter. Like, if they're stupid, they're stupid. I mean, they're stupid already, most of them, and capable of, abstract thought. I mean, the majority of people. This is like kind of audience that these people are targeting, right? And people just don't want the truth, and that's okay, too, because who gives a shit? Like, I mean, it's just a matter of, well, in terms of when shit goes down apocalyptically, not everybody's going to want to survive that. Almost nobody will. Like, nobody's going to want to make those kind of changes to their lifestyle. It's only, the will to live that's, I mean, whatever. We'll see how that all plays out. It'll play out for each person differently. But it's, when you have to go through that kind of changes, when a society collapses, an economy collapses, a lifestyle collapses, people go from riches to rags all the time. And I don't know which is harder, rags to riches. I mean, people think rags to riches is better, but both of them are hard. But when it's riches to rags, it's almost impossible for people to make those kind of changes. People who go rags to riches, they suffer more than you think. They're not, the newfound wealth isn't great. So all these lottery winners commit suicide and, get depressed, and, people who are poor and then win the lottery. It isn't all that great when people become famous and rich. Like, it has, it seems better. At least it seems better. And it's more desirable. But people who goes from riches to rags, they just can't make those kind of changes, right? But anyways, let's play this clip. Then you'll know what I'm talking about here.
I'm not making.
I don't even know what Mitch said, Jimmy.
I'm not making those accusations. I'm just saying that it's obvious that this was a AstroTurf coordinated hit job, because the powers that be are freaking out over the fact that Mitch Snow caught them at Camp Huachuca. That's what. So if you want to see how this...
Was that too different? Was he wearing the same suit? Yeah.
At Camp Huachuca. That's what...
I mean, just when it said Camp Huachuca, you should have, fucking... Just the Camp Huachuca thing, it doesn't, nothing serious is going to happen there.
So if you want to see how this paid-for Mockingbird 2.0 media works going against Candace Owens... we'll show you. But first, let me show you this. This is a guy named Evan Kilgore, who at first was posting lots of stuff that was supportive of Candace Owens, asking questions and investigating every lead, because that's what she's doing. People are like, well, what's her theory? It doesn't matter what her theory is. She wants to an investigator investigates every lead and sees where it goes. And if it goes nowhere, then it goes nowhere.
Yeah, my theory is you're lying to me. That's my fucking theory.
Her theory is she's being lied to, and she's trying to find out why. So... Evan Kilgore says, this is a quick example of how things work.
Never heard of him, by the way.
I wanted to get on here to say something, and no, I will open myself up to thousands of hate comments for it. That's okay with me. What I want to tell you is all I know is that after a great deal of thought and conviction, I can no longer support the direction of Candace Owens' investigation.
You can't support the direction of it?
What? You mean her asking questions and why we're being lied to?
It's not the Candace Owens investigation, dipshit. It's the thing about Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, there's this line here that I'm going to jump off of in a second. This is, the whole thing. That, when people present a point of view, this is a point of view of the situation, right? Like, what people say is permissible in terms of mistakes or poor judgment or out-and-out deception and lies for the people that they support. Like, there's, when Joe Biden's lying and Joe Biden's acting like he's senile, it's like, hey, fuck that guy, we got to get rid of him, and, he's worse, he's horrible, lock him up. And when Trump does it, it's like, well, it's, I mean, he's trying real hard, this kind of thing. It's very subjective. And this is something that everybody has to understand if you're seeking the truth. There's no fucking prejudice. Friendship is prejudice, right? If you're friends or if you're a fan or you're whatever, it's prejudice. Rooting for, somebody like if you have a team that you root for, you want them to get away with, you want the refs to fuck up calls, and you want the bad calls to go your way, and you want the injuries to go on the other team, and all these things, right? And I'm going to get into this, like the nature of God, in a moment, because this is going to jump off into this comment that I want to answer at the end of the last video. But this is very, let me play this part here.
So let's say that she got it wrong with Mitch, whatever his name is. What bearing does that have on I'm being lied to by the fucking FBI? None.
Nothing.
It has a bearing on her and everybody else. If she got it wrong and Mitch no, then it has a bearing on everything that they have to do here. So let me start off. That's a good place to start, right? So when you're in the truth community, when you're in the opposition to the powers that be, there's the official story and there's the authority. And the authority can impose its will, enforce lies, and pretend they're truth, and make everyone else to pretend they're truth, right? In fact, that's what authority does all the time. They make you recite lies, even from an early age, pledge allegiance to the fucking flag and all this other bullshit that they do. Religious authority, telling you that the Bible's the Word of God, bullshit stuff like that. That, you're forced to recite, and it becomes like pillars, fundamental building blocks in your personality and your psyche, that when they get destabilized, and this should happen for every person who becomes a so-called truther. Now, when I woke up, I woke up spiritually before this, so I've had these like times where realizations about the bullshit construct of our system and materiality in general. Like I had a spiritual awakening about that, like a spiritual purpose, which I may or may not come back to here, but I've talked about it, in every third video, so I don't, it doesn't need to be discussed here. But when I woke up, to this idea that the big event in 2001 was done by our own fucking government, like that was, they participated in it. And I knew this undeniably. For like 2 weeks, I was fucked up. Like I was shook. I was, and many of you probably went through some similar experience where you have this realization. And I knew politicians lie, and I knew people lie all the time. And I'd worked in treatment centers, which I'll come to in a moment, with kids who had been sexually abused and then had sexually abused other kids. I knew how fucked up the world was from various, various things that I've experienced, or, my brother telling me about Vietnam War, or whatever it might be. There's things that you have knowledge about how fucked up the system are, how fucked up people are, and how abusive power is. But like that just crossed a line that I couldn't even conceive of. I could understand where some things have to be done that are just evil or bad. That they have to be done because whatever reason. I mean, not that they have to be done, but if you want to preserve a shitty system, you have to do them. And I've, been fairly, generous with the intelligence community and the governments and the politicians who do bad shit to make sure the system doesn't collapse. I mean, legitimate stuff, not just because they want to, but because if they didn't do it, the system would collapse. And, not that the system shouldn't collapse, and not that they that there's lines that you shouldn't cross, but at least, they're doing it for a purpose, a reason, not because they're into doing evil shit, but because it has to be done, right? The people that, I'm talking about people who abuse power, but people who do bad shit, right? But in that, in this system that, is allergic to truth, right? Truth can take the system down. And there are lots of people. There's people in the intelligence community, and there's people in the governments, and people in corporations, people in the media, the powers that be. And then just lots of other people who don't want to see the system go down, who will do anything to make sure truth doesn't enter into the system if that means the system can be taken down. So if you're a person who wants truth to be, or at least find the truth within yourself, and then you become, a danger to the system, because you now have something that can take the system down. Theoretically at this point, but still it's there. That you have knowledge of something that if it was known by everybody, the system couldn't survive that, right? Like most of us have enough knowledge that if everyone else had that same knowledge, our system would have collapsed. Because it can't, withstand that level of truth, because deception and perception are what keep this demonic system going. So if you're a person who's up against the power, the powers that be, was it, who was the first black baseball player, the first black player to play with white players, play in the, the major leagues? Jackie Robinson. And when Jackie Robinson came into the major leagues, he couldn't defend himself or react to people yelling the N-word at him or throwing shit at him or threatening him and any number of things, right? He couldn't be a Black Lives Matter person. He couldn't be protesting. He could just be a guy who smiled and played, played hard, played well. And he had to, he had to be great. Like he couldn't be some shitty player, like he couldn't go in the major leagues and suck. He had to make a case for other black players, right? So he had to just eat shit and play great and somehow psychologically and mentally and do all these things. Like he had a lot more pressure and a lot stricter, a lot walking the razor's edge compared to the white players that were playing there, right? Anything that he did, if you went out, got drunk or slapped a hooker or did some, whatever Babe Ruth shit, like whatever those guys, a lot of those guys were depraved, like all these guys get. He couldn't do shit like that. Like he got to be on the straight and fucking narrow. And that's the same for all of us truthers, right? The famous basketball player Bill Russell, who played in a northern city in the Boston, a racist city in Boston. He started to do activism for black people's rights, civil rights. And somebody broke into his house and took a shit on his bed. He pulled down the covers, and some white guy had shit all over his bed. And so that affected him. Like he liked the Celtics in the organization, but he didn't like the city of Boston, right? He had this sort of love-hate relationship with it because, someone coming in shitting on your bed, that'll make you, that'll turn you south on whatever might happen, right? And so, but he was in a time in the 60s where there had been black players in baseball and football, and they could speak out a little bit more. They didn't have to deal with the same level of pressure as Jackie Robinson. But when you're a truther, your standard, you're held to a much higher standard, because the mainstream media and the powers that be, they fucking lie all the time, but it's the official lie. It's the official story, right? So when you come in as a truther and you're saying you're an investigative person, you're not going to get fair treatment. So when Candace Owens started this, bullshit thing, because she's just a part of it, she's a shell and a piece of shit, right? But when she started her so-called investigation for a really good friend, Charlie, and she just wanted to get to the bottom of things, didn't even fucking agree with this bullshit, right? All this stuff. When she did this, she couldn't have a Mitch Snow, right? Like Alex Jones the same way. Like you can't have some kind of thing where you're just completely wrong, and not only wrong, you're endorsing something without any sort of standards. Like you have to have higher journalistic standards and integrity, and the truth community just doesn't have it. I noticed this when I started making videos, and like I was just saying the same old bullshit that other people were saying. There was these various prevailing narratives in the truth community. I made a video about how Michelle Obama there was a 95% chance she was a dude. And, that video, I would not put that video up on my channel now. It got like 2 million views. It's kind of why my channel popped. Like some other person made a video about this, and I made a video about their video, but my video was the one that, the reason like people think Michelle Obama's a dude is because of me, right? Maybe other people would have if I didn't make that video, but, and it's not something I'm proud of, right? But it's there, right? And the reason that, this whole narrative is there was because I made videos about it. And some of the videos were better than others. But I realized, like, if I was making a video about these actresses, and many of them had seemed like they could possibly be men. But I was, saying it in a way with evidence I didn't have, right? Like, it was there, and, I did a video about how pretty much every male A-list celebrity has to put on a dress. And, of course, this is 2014, 2015, before the whole transgender Bruce Jenner thing, all that stuff, the Caitlyn Jenner thing took off, all that stuff. But I made a video about how these A-list celebrities were basically forced to wear a dress because it was like a rite of passage. But if I was, saying that one of these women, these celebrity women, could possibly be a dude and look somewhat masculine, I would only use the pictures that supported my assessment, my narrative. And I realized that was fucked up. Like, it was wrong. Like, it was, it's not being fair to the subject, and it's lying to your audience. You're presenting things in a way that's deceptive to your audience because, they're looking for you to tell the truth, and you're skewing your evidence. And you don't have an editor, and you don't have journalistic standards. And that's the one problem with the internet. You don't have, any of the kind of things that investigative journalists would have. And if Candace still worked, she worked for the Daily Mail or something, they say, something like that. I heard her say something like that. But if she worked and a Daily Mail is no fucking pinnacle or the pinnacle for journalistic integrity, but if she worked for organizations like that, they have standards, right? They have to worry about being sued for libel and some of these other things. And they have to vet their sources. They have to, the sources have to prove that they have the information. You just can't have somebody come up to you and tell you a fucking story, and you kind of knew it's bullshit, and then just publish it anyway, even though they do this shit all the time, but it's not as bad as the truth community. The truth community, people make things up all the time, and they throw them up against the wall, and they do it to get clicks, and they're doing it, it's abusive to their audience. And it's, it's unfair to everybody. It just muddies the waters. It just makes the truth community be worse than mainstream media. And there's lots of cases where the truth community and the shit that's being thrown out there by people is far worse than the stuff that's being thrown out by, mainstream media, because now people believe more fucked up things and more, that things are even more deceptive and more dishonest than they're getting from the mainstream media. So the truth community, you have to be right. You have to be on track. You have to have, number one, you have to have some sort of integrity and some sort of ethics and, personal code. You have to be, you have to hold yourself to a higher standard, and you have to put out information that, you're doing it for your audience. You're not getting at the people that your subjects. You might embarrass some celebrity or like, Macron's wife or whatever that fucking, it's calling her a dude. Yeah, that sucks for them. But really, it's your audience walking around believing bullshit that you've fed them, right? You're feeding your audience bullshit and lies, misinformation, and you're making the truth community a joke, which has been done over and over again by the QBs and the flat earthers and all these other people that came in and pushed these fucking narratives and, did it to the extent that they made people not want to be a part of it. Like, people became lurkers. Like, they knew the official story was bullshit, but they didn't want to be associated with all the fucking lies and bullshit and depravity in the truth community. And so when Candace Owens said this guy Mitch Snow was legitimate and started a GoFundMe page for him or whatever the fuck she did, and she didn't vet the guy, and she didn't look at the guy, I wouldn't have to ask that guy for fucking directions, never mind consider him a reasonable source. It's retarded. And so that's why it fucking matters, Kirk. That's why it matters, Jimmy Dore, because you can't be wrong like this. It fucks everybody in the truth community. It fucks the investigation. And the investigation's fucked now, right? Because now you've lost all credibility. And, you're fighting for credibility against a system that is labeling you and pigeonholing you and profiling you and all of us and the rest of us as crazy fucking conspiracy theorists and people that just make up lies or are in some sort of echo chamber and all these things are being distorted. But the real problem here is this, and it applies to these two clowns, Jimmy Dore and Kirk Metzger, and it applies to all the other people, the far worse shills and these people, Tucker Carlson, the rest of them, and then all these other people on the internet. is they don't want to tell the truth to their audience. If they come across something that, this, like this guy was saying, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate. I know you guys are going to be mad at me. You don't want to tell the truth to dumb fucks who can't handle the truth. And so there is no truth community because people don't want the fucking truth. They don't want to hear that the system's fucked, right? That why is Jimmy Dore and this guy, Kurt Metzger, or any of these people still pretending like there's some difference between the right and the left, and that Trump isn't a total piece of shit, and that they fucked their audience by not calling bullshit on the fake assassination attempt, that they had to consider it looks so fucking fake, they had to at least think it might be. But they just went along with it, and they pushed Trump on everybody, and they covered up and they lied. They don't want their Christians, they want to tell their Christian audience that the Bible isn't the fucking word of God, and that their religion's fucking them over, and it's, being a gatekeeper between them and God. They don't want to go against these fundamental building blocks because people can't take it. Like, people, freak the fuck out. They get shook. They get rattled. They glitch out when you tell them that some of the fundamental things that they believe and their family believes and they're, part of a community, and knowing the truth would ostracize them from their whole family and all these things, right? So people don't want to tell the truth because you'll lose your fucking audience. There's so many right-wing people, so many Christian people, so many Trumpers. There's so many people who believe in all these things, and you can't touch any of those things. It's like the third rail of your channel. If you need, thousands upon thousands of viewers, if you need 50,000 viewers per video, 100,000 viewers like TPUSK and these other big organizations, you got a payroll, you got these, you're making, you want to be popular, you want to grow, you want to be successful. You can't say shit like that, right? I mean, most of my older videos are privatized, and I could probably open them back up because of the YouTube is open. This happened when YouTube started to censor the shit out of everybody under the Biden administration. I had to make all my old videos private because they were just retroactively going back, and anytime you mentioned fucking vaccine or any fucking bullshit, they were giving people community guideline strikes. And they was taking everybody's channels. I made, I've got 500 videos that are now private. They're just sitting there. Most of them don't have anything in there, but I can't go through each one of them and make sure that I didn't say one little fucking sentence that was, that was being censored at that time, right? But if you could watch my older videos, that's, I don't even really want most of that stuff out there because I wouldn't re-release those videos. I wouldn't put those videos up because they're, I've grown as a presenter and as a person that tells the truth and things like this. But the celebrity videos that I made and some of the things I said that were, at the time I believed them, but I was, especially the earlier videos when I was just going along with everybody else. And then I realized that I had to break free from the bullshit narratives in the truth community. My videos they had a lot better chance of getting lots and lots of views. And they weren't as intelligent, they weren't aimed they weren't as spiritual, they weren't, dumb fucks could watch my videos, right? It was stuff that dumb fucks could watch and understand and would be interested in. And so, my Full House videos, which I think those were good videos. I don't know how much of those videos I would change. I just don't, I wouldn't care to make those now. Like, I don't want to dive into Full House or some of these other things. But in terms of my growth as a presenter of information here, my audience shrinks more and more. My potential audience shrinks more and more as you exclude more and more dumb fucks from your audience, because dumb fucks, and by dumb fucks I also mean people who just can't handle the truth, like about lots of subjects, right? They're looking for truth that agrees with their worldview. So if Tucker Carlson told the truth, like said the things I say, or Megyn Kelly, or anybody on the left, or any of these people, they would lose 90% of their audience, and everyone would talk about how they're failing and would mock them for losing their audience, but they would be growing as people. They would be telling the truth. They would be going to a higher level of consciousness and be able to, talk about things that are more truthful, but shit that nobody really wants to fucking hear. Like the system can't be saved, and that your real goal is a spiritual one, and everyone has to change, and there isn't some fucking good guys versus bad guys and, enemies and these things, because for the most part, what other people do has nothing to do with what you're supposed to do, right? Like, you can't, what you're supposed to do, and what other people are doing shouldn't have any bearing on that. I mean, if you really want to be a spiritual person and get right with God, then you have to forget about what everyone else is doing and figure out what you're supposed to do. But most people want to focus on what everyone else is doing, and that's what the truth community has become. It's just like a different form of gossip and drama, and ways for people to project their own inner bullshit on other people. So in that, let me get to this comment. So here, I got it. A person writes, if God doesn't have a mind, how does he or she think? Well, God doesn't think, right? But let me explain this. So the reason that God is referred to as a he isn't because, men are better than women or the masculine principle is better than the feminine principle. It's because when we refer to God, there's two elements. There is the active idea of creation, and then there's the passive universe, the nothingness, right, which is the feminine. It's like light and darkness coming together. And so it's the nothingness coming together with the active part, which is the spark that created the universe. And so the spark that created the universe would be the slightly, masculine, very subtly masculine part, right? Where the male part is active, because people have, testosterone and estrogen. Both men and women have these, hormones in their system. And there's times that you're passive. Meditation is a passive. It's an active form of prayer, which is passive. In meditation, you get into a state of receiving, which is a passive feminine position, right? Where there's times you surrender to God, which is like a feminine situation, which is a passive situation. There's times where you're active, and you're working, and you're doing your thing, right? So the ego is masculine, and the soul is passive, like this kind of thing. Like it's So when people refer to God as he, in the most truest sense of it, it's because of that. But when you're presented God as a king who sits on a throne, because that's how in the Christian tradition, that's what we grew up with. That's what we were told, that there is a God who is a benevolent, kind man who sits on a throne, and we were made in this image of this God, this male figure, a guy with a male body, male genitalia, and a king, and that Adam was made in this image, right? So this causes a prejudice for women who are lesser than, that God took a rib from Adam and then made a female creature that wasn't really totally made in God's image, because God doesn't have a vagina, right? He sits on a throne with his penis and his balls and his and so this is what you're told that God is, right? That God is, sitting on a throne somewhere. Because the dumb fucks, at that time, and these people, they couldn't understand the idea of an abstract God. So God wasn't made in your image, like what you are as a person. So then you get into the race of God, because all the people who now believe in this bullshit story, and I'll tell you the truth about, what that means, that, if you're going to look at it truthfully, that we were made in God's image. It has nothing to do with our physical bodies. God doesn't have a physical body. So that's, but that's what people knew. People were very physical. They couldn't even understand the abstract idea of a soul and about the spiritual energy and the creative force that we are, that's the part of us that's divine, that's made in God's image. And it's not masculine or feminine. It doesn't have a penis or a vagina. It's none of these things, right? And we'll come back to that in a moment. So if you are a Christian, which there are many people, and you're a black person, you're a white person, you're a brown person, you're any number of, the way that you look, you're going to want the God to be your race, right? So, for white people that ended up dominating the Christian religion, people in England and people in Europe, it's some white Gandalf-looking motherfucker there, King Arthur, some English, some guy with white skin and white people, gray hair, and, white people, whatever it is. That's what God is, and that God made you in his image, right? He's a white person. But what about the black Christians or the Asian Christians or the whatever it is? And so, because there's quite a difference. I mean, there's substantial differences in the race of people. And so which one is God, right? Which race is God? And the white people will say he's white, and the black people will say he's black, all these things, right? And, it becomes prejudicial, which is fucking the problem with all of this stuff, because God can't think, right? God can't think like this person, this comment again. Let me reread the comment. If God doesn't have a mind, how does he or she think? So how many of you have thought your way out of had something good going on, and you started making bullshit up about it? You imagine that you were being screwed over when you weren't. Or you become jealous of something that doesn't exist. You accuse people of doing something they didn't do. And you wreck friendships, and you wreck relationships, and you get fired from jobs. And, your mind works against you, where you're thinking things, and you start to, people who have obsessive thoughts, people with compulsive thoughts, which everyone has to some degree. And you can't stop yourself from self-sabotaging because your mind betrays you. This happens to crazy people all the time, but everybody to some extent, where your mind betrays you, your thinking process betrays you. Or you get things wrong, like you trust Mitch Snow, or you make a decision to lie to your audience like Candace did, or, any number of things where you fuck things up because you manipulated, you thought things, and you did things, and they end up fucking you up. Like, your mind does stuff, and you end up taking a fucking horrible course of action because your brain and your mind and your thinking process betrays you. And how many times did you just get things wrong? Your mind gets things wrong, or things that you have personal prejudice against because of memories, and a number of ways that your mind fucks you over. And so that's the problem with thinking, because thinking is, the mind is a tool, but it often can be misused, and a number of ways people get distorted. The mental process gets distorted, right? People end up in, whatever they are in terms of their thought process, and make fucking bad decisions, self-sabotaging decisions that hurt other people and hurt themselves, and things that are counterproductive. And so, there's good things that people use their minds for, and there are ways that their minds help them be successful and manifest things, but there's also this other side. And God is perfect. And so you can't be perfect and also think. God doesn't have an ego and doesn't have choices. And it's hard for people to wrap their minds around this because they've been told all these other things. But for God to have an ego and have choices, that means that God can make a mistake, because there's only one right choice. God doesn't have the right to choose not to be God. God doesn't have a right to choose to make a mistake or to do something fucked up and, do things that are counterproductive. When you're right with God, when you're being a spiritual person, you're going to suffer. Spiritual people suffer, saints suffer. But from that suffering, it draws you closer to God. So it isn't true suffering, it's a gift, right? It's hard, only when you are grateful for it and you learn to see it as a gift. But there are lots of things that spiritual people don't suffer from, right? Because they don't go out and smoke crack, and they don't go out and bang some hooker, and they don't do things like this. And, they never really know what would happen if they did. Like, people who are innocent and people who are pure, there's always some sense and they don't really understand what God protects them from. And they don't really understand what's waiting for them on the other side in terms of these samskaras, these, patterns and impressions and things that are heavy and draw you back into life and draw you into shitty situations. Like, people who have never been in a war zone, like Americans, don't know what it's like to wake up with unoccupied armies coming in and stealing your food and raping your women and, beating you up and killing you and taking your shit and, doing these things. And don't know what it's like to have bombs landing on buildings. You're sitting in your house and hearing bombs hitting your neighbor's house and hearing people screaming and shit, right? People who've been in war, they know, like, how bad fucking things are. Like, people who have worked in prisons, or when I worked in treatment centers with these little sex offenders who, I worked in 2 different treatment centers, how bad fucking things can get. How shitty some parents are, right? I'll just tell one story from this, but, there was this kid that came into our unit. There was like, this was the first treatment center I worked in. And so these were kids that were young kids that were basically junior sex offenders, most of them really all of them had been sexually abused, and they had then in turn acted out with other kids and abused other kids because they had taught this behavior by a relative or cousin or some older kid in the neighborhood or something, and they were fucked up because they were exposed to sexual activity and material at a young age, and then they poisoned some other kid, right? And they ended up in these treatment centers. And oftentimes it was their parents that would abuse them. And there was this kid, and our kids were from our unit. There was kids from 10 to 14, and there was a unit of kids who were like 4, 5, and 6. And I'm glad I never worked in that unit, because hearing about some of these things these little kids would do, I mean, make you like just vomit hearing the fucking story, make you nauseous, right? But we had one kid who came in who was 7, and he was much smaller than the other kids, but he was so sexual and so fucked up that he was, they had to protect the other younger kids from him, so they put him in our unit. He was a small kid. He wasn't really, that poorly behaved, but he was, kind of weird. And I read his file. You had to read their intake file. And his parents were both dead. And they had trained him and his little brother from the age of toddlers like little fucking monkeys to perform sexual favors for drugs. They're drug addicts, and, they're grifters, scumbag grifters, low-life grifters. And they trained their kids to perform sexual favors and pickpocket and steal things. And, at 2 or 3 years old, they were, these kids were out there like these little, trained little monkeys that were doing all this kind of shit, right? Performing sexual things for adults. I mean, creepy fucking shit, like, And this kid, one day his like a social worker shows up, and she's got his brother. His brother comes in. His brother's wearing like a little suit with like a bow tie. He's like probably like 5 or 6 years old, probably 5. His brother was 7. And, he was a cute little kid, small for his age. And he looked kind of innocent. He was wearing little glasses. And the social worker was bringing him by, and I knew something was wrong. And I go, well, what's happening? She goes, well, he has AIDS, this 5-year-old fucking kid, because of this treatment of his parents. He's got AIDS, and he needs to say goodbye to his brother because he's going to be dead in like a month or 2. And I'm like, holy fuck, right? Like I felt discombobulated, like I was fucking glitching out. Like I had to go sit down. Like I went to the office, it was like I don't want to say I was having like a panic attack, but I was like, I like wanted to die. Like it was fucking, just to see something like that, right? Like this kid had fucking AIDS from his parents and the fucking people that they prostituted him to and whatever. And he was dying, like, it was like horrific. It was like, beyond my capacity to understand how evil, fucking depraved the world was, right? Now, my parents sucked. They were incompetent. But Jesus Christ, right? Like, I was like, I'll never complain about my parents again, or my life, or whatever. Like, this is the hell. And these kids weren't in a war-torn zone, or, there's, much worse off kids and human trafficked and all this stuff. And, your reaction is, oh, we have to go kill all the evil doers, or you have to, lock everybody up and stop this stuff from happening, which is, there's legitimacy to that attitude. But, beyond that, there's this is what's going on in the fucking world. And, I'm not like psyched I know about some of this stuff, right? My brother was counseling these vets, and my brother had his own stories, and he guarded poppy fields in Vietnam for the CIA, and, where they're selling, they're selling opioids because, the CIA and these organizations want to have dark money that they get, hidden money from drugs or weapons sale or whatever shit that they do. So they can do covert operations without having to get funded from the Congress and have to be scrutinized and have to, justify their legal and moral shit that they're doing, that they think they need to do to keep the country going, and maybe in many cases they do, right? And like there's shit going on all the time, and like I for the most part don't want to know about it because I get the general fucking idea, right? And it's there's evil shit going on, especially now, but this happens in the history of human behavior, and you should feel lucky and privileged that you don't have to fucking experience that, right? And there's our people who are, they have this Rumspringa thing. Rumspringa, which is an incredibly great word in the Amish community, where their kids go out and they like fucking take drugs and they experiment with sex and they go or whatever they do. I don't know exactly what's a rumspringer. I've seen it on some shows, but I don't have firsthand knowledge from Amish people. But they get away they get away from their thing to experience these things. And if they're lucky, they'll realize how bad it is and how it affects them. It affects their spiritual condition. It affects their purity, and they're not the same. And it drags you down and all these things, right? And so there's ways that when you're just an innocent, pure person and you're right with God, that you're being protected from all these things and you're not being exposed to these toxins and this bullshit. But then you start wondering, hey, what is it like over there? And and you don't appreciate the purity, and people get bored, and the fucking bad boy fucking evil, this kind of stuff, which is so much publicized and whatever people have, the making these bad decisions, and then you can do it and you're like, oh my God, it's so fucking bad. I'm so glad I was protected from it, right? And so, this is going back to the idea that God, is pure in the sense that God doesn't have the ability to be prejudiced. God only loves you and everybody else. Like, that's all God can do is love. God can't make mistakes, and God doesn't, choose favorites. I mean, anybody who's a parent knows that there's, all these things where you have to fight, the any kind of process within yourself that you want to choose favorites, and you favor one kid over the other. You're there for all of them, whether you like one more than the other, or, these kind of things. You can't pick sides, and you can't, that fucks up the whole family, fucks up all the kids, right? The ones that you favor and the ones that you don't, and the scapegoats and all these things. And God doesn't have that problem because God doesn't fucking think. God doesn't have prejudice. God doesn't think of some people as evil, some people as bad, all these things. God doesn't hate the devil. God doesn't have none of these things. God doesn't have the capacity to hate. Hate exists only in us. God has only the higher level quality, which is love. God doesn't have any other emotion or any other thought or any other feeling. God can only have love because it's, God is love, right? That feeling of love is, the part of us that's divinity. And so, it's hard for people to understand this, but that's the way it has to be. Like, God can't choose. That's why you have to have people like spiritual masters and saints and higher developed souls that oversee the divine universe because, they can think and they can make adjustments and they can, do things to, they can read the situation and understand the blueprint and the divinity that God is. God had one thought, and that was the creation of the universe. And that thought, this subtle thought, this what's called the kashob in Sanskrit. And that's God's one thought. And it's, not the God doesn't have a mind or it's a singular thought, and the feeling behind that thought is love, right? That's why when you feel love, you feel God. That's your experience of God. And that's why you can't know God mentally, because God doesn't have knowledge. God doesn't know what a grasshopper is or a kangaroo is or any of these things. God doesn't have eyes, and God doesn't have ears, and God doesn't have senses, and God doesn't have any of these things that people attribute to God because they're too stupid to understand and too remedial to understand the abstract ideas that I'm talking about here. And, it's kind of scary to think about it that way. And so there's no good people or evil people, and there's none of this stuff. It's people's own ability to embrace the divinity within them and not look towards, the grass is greener and the evil side of things, and not let their minds and their egos get the best of them, and need to know what it's like to experience fucking being a crack addict, or what it's like to fucking murder somebody, or what it's like to, whatever number of horrible things that you can do, or bad choices, or just mediocre choices that aren't like so evil, or, middle of the road choices that are not, they're not God's choice, but they're not, something bad. But that you can just have faith that, that this feeling that you have of the divine love is, as boring as it can be, or as subtle as it can be, nothing gets better than that. Like, nothing else is going to replace that. You can win the fucking Super Bowl, you can win the lottery, you can, have some incredible moment, you can climb fucking Mount Everest, you can do any of these things. But nothing's better than the feeling of God's love. And that all these things that you look at as being somehow, there's a lot more excitement, there's a lot of lower level emotions involved, but, nothing's better than love, right? The innocence of the purity of love. And so, this is what people, human beings, they have it and they throw it away cheaply. People who have loving relationships and they shit all over them, and they, people are, these things. And then they realize maybe the error of their ways, they have their regrets, but then it's too late, right? And so people want a wrathful God like's presented in the shitty Old Testament, these fucking religions where God is fucking fire and brimstone, he's pissed. It's you that punishes yourself. If you do something that goes away from your soul's path and God's will, there are consequences that you yourself inflict on yourself, right? There are consequences that come from a need to redeem and realize the error of your ways and choose and turn around and about face and go and get back on the straight and narrow and find your way back to your spiritual path and to the divinity within you. But most people just ignore those things, and they absorb them because they enjoy, or they con themselves into thinking that choosing to go against God's will and to do the wrong things is somehow, they're willing to suffer the consequences for the power and the freedom there is to do the wrong thing. The power to choose to do the wrong thing. But God doesn't have that choice. And therefore God can't have a mind or ego, because if you have those things, a mind and an ego, it allows you, it gives you the opportunity to make choices other than what God wants you to do. It gives you freedom to choose the wrong thing. And that's why the world's so fucked up, because people want that freedom, love that freedom, and want to embrace that freedom. And that's why spiritual people get killed and tortured, because people don't want to hear that that's fucking wrong. Like, they don't want to hear it. They can't even hear it. They can't even tolerate the idea that someone's out there telling everybody that, choosing to do the wrong thing is choosing to do the wrong fucking thing. There's no excuse for it, and it only causes pain and suffering to yourself and other people. So that's why this Mitch Snow and all this other bullshit, the so-called truth community, matters, because the truth community should be something that's of a higher standard and not lower than the mainstream official choice and the governmental choice and the mainstream media choices and the Hollywood choices. Like, if you're lower than them, then fucking you've missed the boat. And lots of things in the truth community are low because it's supposed to be higher and it's lower. Anyways, let's get into the other stuff here. Okay, so today is the 2nd of January, I believe. It is. January 2nd, 2026. And I was going to X out of this thing, and I thought I'd watch a little bit more last night, which, prompted me to, I just got to go deeper into these pieces of shit here with this thing.
I have always been interested in possible alternative narrative to Charlie Kirk's assassination. That's the new line, by the way. Yeah, I don't trust the FBI either, but Candace is crazy. That's the new one, right?
Okay, it doesn't matter, though, if she's crazy. It has nothing to do with the thing I care about.
I have likely been her biggest supporter on X, sharing her clips, blah, blah. Many of her questions, concerns, and criticisms I have agreed with. In fact, virtually all of them, until Mitch Snow. So obviously she's over the target with Mitch Snow, because the meltdown, there's a couple things. When she started...
Obviously she's over the target with Mitch Snow. Obviously she's over the target with Mitch Snow.
Started talking about Egyptian planes, they melted down over that. And when she started talking about Mitch Snow, whoa!
Okay, so I don't think these guys are paid shills. They all have an audience to keep happy, and they're all, I don't know if he's purposefully lying. I think he's just fucking retarded. This fucking guy's just stupid. Like, are you fucking stupid? Like, how does this guy have a truther show? People keep on sending me this guy's clips over the years, and you see like guy Kurt Metzger. He was on with Kyle Doonigan. They did a funny couple of bits there. He's a comedian. And this guy's a comedian, right? And I don't know. I haven't seen him be funny, but a lot of people like this guy's show. He's got He's got an audience, a robust audience, not like Candace Owens. But are you fucking retarded? Are you retarded? Like, what? What are you even fucking saying here? That she's over the target with Mitch Snow, and there's a meltdown? Because all of us that are saying she's full of shit, every one of us that's saying full of shit, we're being paid by Israel and fucking the powers that be because she's getting close? What the fuck are you talking about? So the problem with this thing is anybody with a logical fucking mind would know that when she started talking about Egyptian planes and fucking the French Foreign Legion, and she herself, before she found this wonderful asset, this source in Mitch Snow, was praying for a smoking gun. So she had nothing legitimate, nothing substantial, right? She had nothing that, was concrete evidence against all the powers that be. So she's just out there doing fucking horrific journalism, right? She's doing bad journalism. And she's, through innuendos and through, well, this is a weird coinkydink and all this kind of bullshit, keeping her audience. She's fucking her audience over, which I talked about yesterday, in this voiceover things. You're screwing your audience over by lying to them and misleading them. She's not saying fucking a peep about Mitch Snow. And she's going to have to come out like next week, I guess. She's in hiding on vacation. She should do like an emergency podcast because of these fucking video clips, right, of this fucking guy. And the two video clips, it's not just the one video clip. It's the video clip of him talking about the incident where he, says his wife, who was obviously small, she's probably 5'4", under 5'4", at least under 5'6". She has a high voice, assaulted him with a hammer, broke his feet and thumbs, and fractured his skull, and the cops arrested him in a whiny, total piece of shit type of a way, like a bizarre story. And then the video came out, and she got, right? She got by this fucking video. But, that isn't over the fucking target. It's just making a mess of this fucking thing. If you were the people responsible for this, you're really happy with what Candace Owens is doing. You are. She is, muddying the water. She's doing what the QBs did, what Alex Jones has done for years. She's turning it into a fucking joke. But the bigger problem here with all these pieces of shit, that this guy included, is you guys all backed Trump, right? You backed fucking Trump. And there was enough information about Trump that you should have known the guy was a selfish prick that he didn't care about anybody else and couldn't deliver on his promises. He's a grifter. And that his closest friends, people that were, everybody that he's ever been close to and tells you how great that person is, he throws under the bus eventually. He did it to every one of these people. He did his first term to all these people, loyal Trumpers. He did to his fucking handler, Michael Cohen, who ended up going to jail. And people who were in Trump's orbit, their lives didn't get better. He's cheap as fuck. He didn't make them rich. And he used them and then throws them away. And oftentimes they go to jail or they suffer. Look at Rudy Giuliani hawking fucking meds on his podcast that has 4,000 views because he has a $140 million lawsuit judgment against him after he represented this piece of shit, right? That even if Trump was Superman and he was Jesus, he couldn't make fucking the world, make America great again. That's not possible. There's too much debt. There's no doing any of that. And if you guys were responsible to your audience, you would be able to see it. Like, you should all be able to see it by now. And now that Trump's crapped out, there should be like, yeah, I fucked up. There should be like, I misled you. And I should have seen more. And now you're doing it with fucking Candace Owens, who's obviously a grifting piece of shit, right? Who's hiding away from this Mitch Snow fucking disaster. And so but she's not over the fucking target. She's not getting fucking close and all the shills are coming out. She's embarrassing herself and she's embarrassing you and the truth community and everybody fucking else in her and her audience, and she's leading them down these fucking rabbit holes. You know, when we have all this evidence against Jeffrey Epstein, and there's, you know, obviously there's people, including Donald Trump, that had a relationship with him that knew about it and should be destroyed and canceled and whatever else. I mean, they're not going to jail, right? But none of that's going to happen. So the Epstein files, and there's, you know, he had a criminal conviction, and it's the media's covering it. And there's senators and all these people involved, and not one fucking person's going to jail. There's 1,500 victims. There's a dead woman who got Epstein, right? There's this weird fucking suicide, and nothing's going to come of that. Nothing is going to come of that. So why would you think anything's going to come of this Charlie Kirk fucking thing? When nobody's covering it, everyone's fucking moved on. Mainstream media isn't covering it. You know, Candace Owens is just once in a while being mentioned with the rift between the right and the left. Now it's becoming a thing. Ben Shapiro, you know, Alex Jones and those people on one side, Candace Owens and whoever else on the other. She's kind of by herself, and she's whining about being by herself. And she's by herself because there's never going to be any real evidence or anything that's going to be a smoking gun, and even if there was, there's no accountability in the system. Like, everyone should fucking know that by now. Like, there's no fucking, this never leads to anything. I've been doing this. I've had this channel since 2007. I've watched as a viewer and as a participant in there, and nothing ever fucking happens. Nobody gets busted, and if it was, it would be one person or somebody, you know, unremarkable. But the truth comes out, and it's there for everyone to see. But it's now clouded in a sea of fucking disinformation, and it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't fucking do anything. Just for people to waste their fucking time. You know, it's for clicks and these other things. And all these people, you guys knew Trump was a piece of shit. And, you know, you should have known. And you should have known that even if he wasn't a piece of shit, he couldn't make America great again. That this was all a fucking, you know, it was dead in the water. America's fucked. And the best you can do is help people prepare mentally, spiritually, emotionally, mostly spiritually, and to whatever extent physically for what's going to happen. The fucking collapse is upon us, right? The end of a fucking demonic system. It's, you know, it's crumbling around us. And there's, you know, and these infighting, the stupid bullshit and all this kind of stuff. And so, you know, like, there's no fucking, she's not over the fucking target. And everybody's, oh my God, they're all panicking. That's her bullshit. And what, you know, she's dropped the Egyptian planes. That didn't fucking lead anywhere. I mean, she admitted it. She prayed to God, please God, give me something that's real, substantial evidence. And out of the fucking, and God somehow gave to her bitch Snow.
Everybody came out against her. And
I cannot justify the thrust of that investigation, okay? Mitch Snow genocided Gaza. That's a crime, Jimmy.
Well, watching Mitch share, so if you don't know who this Mitch guy is, Mitch is the guy who was the former special ops military guy. He was at that...
you mean special... You're saying this guy's a special ops military guy.
Stop it!
Touched it.
Do not hit my Mustang.
You hit me all you want. You're ruining our relationship because you gave your keys to your cousin.
I didn't
he lost
give
them.
my...
Okay, so these people don't know about locksmiths, right? You know, you can replace your, you know, whatever it is, the ignition switch. I participated in one of my family friend who, you know, knew more about cars than I do. This is years ago. We had an ignition switch, and he helps me put one in our van. You know, or you can get this towed to have somebody do it. They're not that expensive. I don't know what an ignition switch on these old Mustangs are. But if you didn't have the keys, or, you know, a locksmith, I don't know. You know, you could get a locksmith to make you a key. Or you could have fucking had extra keys set around. Whatever it is, right? But this guy is special fucking forces. This guy is ex-special forces. This wimpy, whiny piece of shit is ex-special forces. Like, first of all, that's bullshit. Like, this guy is not fucking... I don't know if he was ever in the military, what he did there. But he is, you know, a blubbering pussy, right? Like, in this weird dispute with his wife. Whiny little fucking gay-sounding man-child.
My keys to anybody.
You're the one who asked him to mess with your car. I haven't touched this car in forever.
Forever. Does that not seem like he's a little bit effeminate, a little bit gay, possibly? Something. I haven't touched this car forever.
It's been in my way. I'd like you out of the way. I have no idea where the keys are. Would love to know. But that's not what we were doing today. But you have to do this. You have to. Don't defend
ask you a question.
now.
I can defend myself all I want because you're being insane.
You want to video record shit?
You want to threaten to hit my car with a hammer? God damn it!
He did that such a feminine gay way. And they're still married at this point. So he's, I mean, this is Special Forces guy. This is the guy you're going to base your credibility on. You're going to die in a hill over this fucking guy. Oh, yeah, I got to go back. I missed an opportunity. I got this bit, and I blew it on my last video.
The guy who was the former special ops military guy.
Thank you for your service. I got to do that bit. When anybody brags or whatever this brags about something, I want to do this bit for a while. Thank you for when anybody tells you how much they're serving you or how great they are. I can do it with Trump all the time, like it's a whole new thing. Thank you for your service. Okay, I was just reading through the comments, and one of my viewers said, I did the same thing with the thank you for your service. I went around saying, Shabbat Shalom to my family during the holidays, LOA. Well, they were confused, but laughing at the same time. Yeah, so that's another good one. But this thank you for the service is it's something that just struck me as funny because people say it but don't fucking mean it, right? But it's not about just military. It's going to be about everything. Like anytime somebody brags, I got to remember to do it, right? Like I got all these great memes. I want to start bringing some of those back in 2026. Let's start with this one here. I'm not going to explain it. I'll just show it to you, and then I'll come back and explain it. Maybe someone reminded me of this meme. It's an Aaron Carter meme on a show where I am going to explain it. It's an Aaron Carter meme where he was on a show, and he was calling his mom his momager. They took money from him and his Aaron Carter and his brother Nick, and he said it wasn't mean that you're a cash cow for your family, and he said this.
That I supplied milk to my family?
She came out and acting real kind. She took my keys, she took my phone, she went back inside and forced me to go back in and find out what was going on. Lures me to the garage that she pre-set up to be like a little prison. She broke the garage doors.
Was she some sort of supervillain that could trap a special forces soldier, a whiny, blubbery, gay-acting special forces soldier? She set up her garage as a trap to imprison him? Okay, I'm editing here. And, to go with this, he said she took his phone and his keys. His fucking wife, she took my phone and my keys and lured me to... you have zero training for such circumstances. I mean, was she fucking your mom? Say, give me your keys, your phone here, don't go into the garage, and now I'm going to fucking start beating the shit out of you with a hammer. Fuck. Yeah, he's totally special forces.
Hoarded stuff was stacked against the windows and the other doors, and she lured me in there and attacked me. Hit me with a hammer and, break my thumbs.
I mean, good thing you didn't have, fucking extensive military training as a ex-special forces soldier that could fight off a 5'4" wife with a hammer.
Feet. Back of my skull. And I got the hammer.
What year was this?
That was 25 June 2016.
Boom. It's a horrific day. She beat the shit out of me with a hammer, trapped me in the garage. None of this stuff. I mean, in his own story. Then he walks out to the cops with a fractured skull, 2 broken thumbs, and 2 broken feet, and they arrest him. And there's no like, oh my God, my wife just beat the shit out of me with a hammer kind of thing. He walks up to cops who just happen to be sitting by his house. And so, does this guy sound like a fucking ex-special forces person or a person who has any fucking value whatsoever? Like, let's go to the Candace Owens thing.
Very well. I obviously, the story of how I instantly got the email from one of your friends that just said, you should call Mitch, after I prayed and said, I'm missing a piece of this. Please, God, give me a piece of the story. And the first...
I just randomly hit this thing. This is where I just pulled this video back up. And this is where it ended up.
Well, I see when I get back from church on a day of holy obligation is this email. And so, Mitch, my audience is up to...
Mitch was sent from God, is what you're saying. This fucking guy sent from God is a miracle. The missing piece of the puzzle that she now is running away from. God fucked you, Candace. God fucked you, Candace. God completely fucked you with this thing, Candace. You prayed, and God was like, hey, let's fuck with Candace.
On what happened to you when you were 20 years old. And I'm wondering if you can just sort of briefly recap in case I got some things wrong.
Oh, wow. Briefly recap 35 years. Sure. Yeah, we were part of a mission going down to...
Thank you for your service.
Down to the border of JTF 6, assigned from 10th Mountain. Previously, there had been a Marine Corps unit there. Apparently, they had an incident. We had to replace them. So
do you think this guy, like this fucking guy, right, is special forces? Like, what? I mean, he's not fucking credible. His story is incredible, right? So this is going back to where he was responsible from his own, story for some Iran-Contra thing. Like he found some tunnel or some bullshit, right? And so when you hear this guy talk, you're like, oh, this guy's got nothing. This is not something, this guy is not credible. And he's got a story that's going to involve seeing Erica J. Kirk and all these other people at this Fort Huachua, right?
He was at that Camp Chahuka. Is that how you say it? Wahuka?
Huachuca.
Wachuca. That's how you say it.
Huachuca.
And he claims he saw Erica Kirk and the head of Charlie's security team there at this military base where they do all psyops and drone stuff.
Yeah,
on the 8th,
nothing feels off about that at all to me.
On the 8th of September.
Nothing feels off about that at all? That he saw them there or that he said that? Like fucking, because it's an outlandish fucking claim, right? Which, according to Alex Jones, and he's, of course, a worthless piece of shit, grifting piece of shit, these people all have alibis for that day. Like it's a specific day. And they, these are public figures and they're all, like one of them was on C-SPAN or something. So, his story is already being questioned. Again, you don't even need to get into a story. You just look at the fucking guy and go, yeah, this guy has nothing to fucking offer anybody in humanity. Like, who is this fucking, this doughboy they're rolling out, right? Like, you fucking... your bullshit meter should be like, oh, yeah, this is just some fucking bullshit thing. Especially after the Egyptian planes and the rest of it.
Days before Charlie was killed. And on the 9th of September, he said he stumbled onto this big high-level meeting where a congressman came out and he was blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. So that's who this Mitch guy is. So while Mitch was sharing his testimony of what he allegedly saw at Fort, how do you say this? Huachuca. Everything felt off about it to me. She's also said, by the way, Candace Owens has said, hey, I don't know if his memory is correct or what, but we're going to follow this lead.
Yeah. The thing is, and I just want to end this thing here. If Candace Owens, if this guy gets exposed as a fraud, is she going to apologize to Erica J. Kirk and the rest of those people who are implicated in something? When you do these false accusations, you lose credibility. And, you didn't do... Okay, so, if she was doing proper journalism, she would have to issue a retraction here. She apology, retraction. You know, like this is a person she should have vetted before bringing on her show because of the way that the internet works. And she's, she's doing Erica Kirk and the rest of these people a big favor because she just has discredited everybody who's doing a real investigation here. And let's be straight about this or clear about this, that this is never going to be a mainstream thing. There's never going to be any justice. There's never going to be any media participation in this other than, talking about the divide in the truth community or the right wing, the MAGA group or whatever it is, right? There's never going to be any real investigation from the FBI. There's never going to be a court case. There's never going to be anything to come of this. Like nothing ever happens, and this is a case of that. So this is the court of public opinion of people who don't believe in the official story, and now you've just fucked that whole thing up, right? Because people have different theories about what happened on 9/11 or any of these big events. People in the truth community, and there's no real consensus on what actually happened, and we don't know. Like we don't know all the details. We don't know all the people involved. We can speculate. The truth is there, but it's in a sea of fucking bullshit and disinformation. And even if we did know, who gives a fuck? Like no one's ever going to be held accountable in that way. This is the year of accountability, and that's divine accountability, where there's no trial, there's no, maybe there's a trial, but, that's just part of it. But like shit happens from a divine level where people are held accountable. I know, not even maybe nothing to do with the system, right? But, it doesn't have to go through some court system or something. It's just, it's the divine system. The divine system, everything is accounted for. And at some point, everybody has to, suffer the consequences of their bad behavior, whatever it might be, or the reap the rewards of their good behavior, right? Accountability can be either way, right? The, rewards for doing what you're supposed to do and finding your soul's path and working for God and, becoming what you're supposed to become. There's accountability for that. And there's accountability for the other. And so this is never going to be anything but the court of public opinion. And you've just fucked that thing up. You should apologize to your audience for rolling this fucking guy out and say, I'm sorry, I gave credibility to this thing and I used poor judgment. My judgment cannot be trusted because I'm looking for views and I'm a fucking, this was part of the script that my handler gave me to follow or whatever the fuck it is. But that's not going to happen. Like she's just hiding out, trying to probably change the subject. We'll see whatever she does on Monday or whatever it is. Like fucking, I mean, I'm not going to watch the show, so I don't know, but it's whatever, happens with all that. And she's given credibility to Alex fucking Jones and the rest of these fucking people. This whole thing, Mitch Snow is a fucking nightmare situation for everybody involved, right? And so what she could have done was this. She says that she has people who are willing to, who have told her, the people who work at 2PUSK, and some of them are interns, that Tyler Boyer, who is the guy who introduced Charlie to Erica Kirk. He was Charlie's second in command at the fucking TPUSK, and he seems really gay, and he's responsible for hiring all these twinks and shit over there, right? And so that he was hitting on interns, that they had young college men who were heterosexual kids who were going to this Christian organization and being hit on sexually by this guy Tyler Boyer. She says she has evidence to support that. That was going to be one of the things that came out because they were pushing back against him doing that, being gay or whatever it was. They were the twinks were pushing back against that as one of the accusations, and they were supposed to present evidence of the contrary, and she was going to rebut it. Then her meeting with Erica Kirk got rid of that. But if she came out and exposed that TPUSK had a lot of gay dudes working there, and that this one guy was, behaving inappropriately, sexually harassing these twinks. We'll get into Will Smith here in a moment. I guess this has finally come out with him. And so she could have taken down the organization's credibility, even more than it's been taken down. And then it's like, well, if they're covering this up, and that involves Charlie as well, because Charlie was, this was a second in command, and then that would mean that there's some fucked up things going on there. And then pursuing the financial aspects. This guy claims to have done an audit, and that shows that they have misused funds. Those were the things that you could go after. You get rid of TPUSK's credibility, that these people are not good Christian people that love Charlie Kirk and would never do such a thing. There's a lot of grifting going on there. Charlie Kirk was a grifter. And so if he's a grifter, then his wife's a grifter, right? Like she's a part of that, and the rest of these people are grifters. They're taking advantage of their audience, and like that could be something. Like that could be something where, if you destroy their credibility, then you're like, well, if they're willing to grift and take advantage of their audience, as Charlie was, because Charlie's a piece of shit. If all you guys were being honest, you would say Charlie was defending a genocide. He was out there blaming the Palestinian people, saying that he believed in Israel's biblical land rights, that they had the chosen people bullshit stuff, the promised land bullshit, that they had the right to Israel, and that the neighboring countries should be pressured to take in 2 million refugees who should be kicked out of their country because of some bullshit fucking biblical, a shitty Old Testament. I mean, this is where you're getting into where this is all fucked, right? This whole fucking paradigm, and starting with the Bible and the rest of it, and then moving up through our scientific community and all these things. It's all bullshit, right? It's all fucking, grifting and lying and manipulating and everybody pretending they have the official story and guiding humanity in the wrong fucking direction, right? This is where you're getting into like an existential crisis type situation. And so she could have pursued that route, go scorched earth on TPUSK, and that's just tell the truth to people. If she has actual people that are willing to say this guy Tyler Boyer is gay, then the financial aspects of TPUSK and just take down the organization, because then you're like, oh well, Charlie was a part of this. Well, Charlie was a piece of shit too, so it's no longer about his murder. And then all of it, right? And then all the people involved, and Trump and J.D. Vance and all these other people being a part of just a criminal, grifting fucking organization. And that's what it is. And that's, and she has, according to her, the evidence to, get that ball rolling. But she's over there in Egyptian plain lands and Mitch fucking Snow, right? This special forces guy. And so it's ridiculous. And this guy's still pitching this. Like he doesn't even fucking know, like she's fucked. These videos of this guy, people aren't buying his bullshit, right? And so, and the GoFundMe page, like this, you're out on a fucking ledge here with Trump. Like these guys are always fucking wrong. And they never fucking, there's no accountability for their bullshit. And they're being, at best retarded and, using poor judgment and misleading their audience. So years ago, this is 2015, when I started doing this like as a full-time job. This channel was about documenting my family's journey through homesteading, right? And then the truther stuff and my spiritual stuff was in there, but mostly videos of us milking cows and doing things. This is how the channel started. And I made occasional truther videos. And I'd done a few celebrity videos. I really didn't like Hollywood, just things that, I saw or whatever. And when I started doing this full time, and I realized I had to fucking cover Hollywood, which is like I felt was beneath me, right? Which, of course, it's beneath everybody. I covered 3 people. I saw this narrative. And these were the people that got the good guy narrative: Will Smith, Ellen DeGeneres, and Tom Hanks. They were people who, before anybody else was on Tom Hanks and these other things, and this stuff came out with Ellen. This is all the way back in 2014. I realized that there was just, everything was bullshit in Hollywood and all these, ways that they build people up. And these were people who were trusted, right? They were the good guys. They were these people. And of course, we know what happened to Ellen DeGeneres, and we know what happened sort of to Tom Hanks. He got exposed to whatever degree. Then, of course, the QAnon people came in and wrecked that shit, right? But the thing that came up with Will Smith was that he was probably bisexual or gay. Like, that was the overwhelming evidence. There was people in Hollywood saying it. There was this guy, whatever his name was, he was like a transgender guy. He was part of that family. They had like 2 sisters. You know, they're the one girl who started that psychic show, The Medium. And geez, I can't believe I can't think of their name. Then Arnett's, was it Arnett? Whatever it is. So they were, you know, these people, and you know, this there was just all this evidence that he was gay, and you know, just across the board. And I've made a lot of videos about this. And then his former manager came out and saw he had this best buddy. They were like they hung out together all the time, and he said that he walked in with this guy sodomizing Will Smith. This guy was, you know, Will Smith's former manager, and I guess, you know, he went around, did these interviews, and they said they were going to sue him, and then some kind of deal was reached, and the guy shut up, like he didn't talk about this. But you know, they've had a beard marriage, and we know about his wife basically banging his son's his son's friends for 2 years. It was just like they were all going on vacations together, like that kind of weird shit. And Will Smith was okay with her lover just basically living at his house, right, where he's getting cucked by this guy. And then the whole bullshit slap of Chris Rock, right? But here it is again. It keeps on coming up. Will Smith sued by violinist Brian King Joseph for sexual harassment. The actor-musician is facing a lawsuit allegedly wrongful termination and retaliation. Brian King Joseph, a professional violinist, has filed sexual harassment complaint against Will Smith. The lawsuit details an alleged incident in which Joseph discovered evidence of a sexual threat of violence in his hotel room while working at Smith, based on a true story, 2025 tour. Based on a true story. Joseph is suing Smith and associates for sexual harassment, wrongful termination, or retaliation. Professional violinist complained to Superior Court of California. The complaint claims that Smith was deliberately grooming and priming Joseph for further sexual exploitation after inviting Joseph to join his global tour. And details alleged traumatic series of events amidst his tour, which Joseph claims that he discovered that someone had entered his Las Vegas hotel room with signs of forced entry, evidence of sexual threat of violence, allegedly including a handwritten note reading, "Brian, I'll be back, just us," with a drawn heart and signed Stone F, as well as wipes of beer bottle and a backpack and a bottle of HIV medication with another individual's name, and earning the hospital's discharge paperwork belonging to a person unbeknownst to Joseph. Here he is, the violinist. So, you know, Will Smith is gay. Or something. I don't even know what you call this. You know, whatever it is. But this stuff keeps on coming back up because, you know. Okay, so it was Alexis Arquette. There was the Arquette family. It was like 4 famous Arquettes, and Alexis was a maybe drag queen. I'm not sure. A gay cross-dresser, transgender, I don't know. Something. And he called out Will Smith and Jaden Smith for having a beard marriage, and that everyone like knew they were gay. And that was like 15 years ago, and then that person died a couple years later. And you know, and it just kind of fell apart for Will J. Smith from there. Okay, so when my wife and I watched various we watched the CNN broadcast of this, and I the ball didn't move. The ball didn't drop like it normally does on New Year's. And the other thing was that the 2026 looked like 2024. And certainly from different angles, it looks more like a 4 than a 6. And my wife said she saw some shit on Reddit about people, like, you know, saying the ball, there was just stuff off about it. The ball didn't drop. So I ended up showing a bunch of clips. One was from Associated Press, and one was from, it was the original one I first saw from CNN, and then there was one from New York Post. And CBS claimed copyright on them, which is a fucked up thing to do, and had nothing to do with, you know, the whole thing. Like this, the CBS stuff had nothing to do with what I, you know. But they're shitty about copywriting stuff. And now with that woman in charge, you know, whatever her name is. And so I did a bunch of video clips here, and I just don't want to go through it and uncopyright, like take small clips. But it's kind of a weird thing, and so I have this voiceover coming up about it too. About like some of my reaction to it. But there was something off about it, and they changed balls, and the ball didn't move, and there's supposed to be double ball drop and some other bullshit. But anyways, that's I'm just sort of doing a short crib notes version of the thing, and then I saw the Fox News one had, you can see with the Fox News one here, they had they end up going to the Associated Press one, and this one had a couple of dudes making out, right? So this was also from Associated Press, and it's what we saw on CNN, and I guess CBS used the same one. And it says Planet Fitness on it. They had a bunch of couples making out. They had 3 different couples and some other people, and they're all wearing these Planet Fitness hats that were, a part of the celebration. They're sponsoring it, right? And it's just these were actors, stage people that were coming in, and kissing after the whole thing. The ball didn't drop, and the rest of the shit. And there was just something. The whole thing just seemed weird. All right, so let me go to the voiceover. That gives you sort of like a little bit of what was in here before they copyright. It's a fucked up thing that they do. CBS just sucks. And now with Barry Weiss, they suck even more. So here's the voiceover I did about it. Just want to add something briefly here. I had a weird feeling. I don't know if feeling is the right word. Just felt, the word surreal is so overused. And of course, with this big prediction from Whispers of the Brighter World, since I know it since 2005. So for 21 years, I've been sort of waiting for this thing to either happen or not happen. And then, everything since then, for the past 20 years, has slowly been moving from, doesn't appear that that'll happen, to, oh yeah, that's totally going to happen, right? Just in terms of everything that's happened the last 20 years and how everything's just, going down the toilet. And so, with that Whispers of the Brighter World prophecy, and then, a series of prophecies, and the one that was dated, whatever it was, 30th of February, 2000, basically a month over, 2 months from now, and some big event happening, and just all the rest of it. And so, that's going to affect the way I see it. Like I'm prejudiced, or, my lens has been skewed a little bit, but still, it just felt weird. Like, I don't know, maybe the last 3 years I've watched the New Year celebration, and I hadn't watched it for years before that. Like, I didn't watch the ball drop. I always thought it was goofy, and I didn't like these shows. It's like watching the parades, New Year's Day parade, or Christmas Day parade, Macy's parade, Thanksgiving Day parade, those things. Like, I don't watch any of that stuff. Like, only to mock it. And when Anderson Cooper and that guy started to get drunk, and the CNN people started to get drunk with them, I would look at the coverage the day after and try to find, clips of Don Lemon being drunk and Anderson Cooper being drunk and some of these things. I have the weird Anderson Cooper laugh that nobody likes when I play that meme. I have this whole meme of him laughing, and it's, it's so abhorrent, and nobody, everybody dislikes it. Like, people don't want me to play that meme anymore. It was a bit they did with Snoop Dogg, and he was laughing so in such a fake, obnoxious, irritating way. And so, there's all that. I'll play just a snippet of it just because it pisses everybody off, but it's horrible. And, it was something when news anchors would get drunk, and they're supposed to be people you can trust, and you don't want to see that side of them. Like, if you have a therapist or a priest or, somebody who's in a position of, I don't want to say reverence, or somebody that's supposed to be above the, somebody you can trust their professionalism, and journalists should be in that category. You don't want to see them drunk, right? You don't want to see them. You want to see your parents drunk. Like, there's just things out there you don't want to see because it, whatever. There's just something that gets lost. The illusion that journalists are somehow a cut above, right? And you see them get drunk and sloppy like Don Lemons and those people did. I'll show you that, that clip of Don Lemons drinking and dancing. You know what I have. They have two memes there. I'll show you at the end of this voiceover. And so there's just something weird about this year already, and you got to feel like everything's just like culminating into this point, and just all the weirdness and the truth community eating itself now, and the MAGA movement imploding, and then just all of it, how the Democrats imploded with Candace, and you know there's just this general sense of doom, young people thinking they're not having a future, and then there's 2026. All right, here are the two memes.
This is the new CNN.
I would have to say, if secondhand smoke counts, yes.
Okay.
You wouldn't believe me if I told you, but that answer's going to be yes.
I knew it.
Where am I?
Right. Okay.
Where am I?
Okay.
It's hell, Anderson, and get used to it.
And I almost got thrown.
Are you guys hammered? Oh my God.
Are you guys hammered?
Okay, you know, I'm trying to, I have been ignoring these things. You know, I went from this gaudy, exploitive Christian jewelry to I stand with Israel. These, I'm getting bombarded on Facebook with these messages. I open up Facebook, and it's like the first thing, right? Like all of them. I now can get a I stand with Israel magnet for a gift at any amount. Saving Lives at Israel, nedviewshop.com. And, you know, if you donate here, you get a magnet that says I stand with Israel. So you can probably put it on your refrigerator and look at it every morning. The thing about it is, and I wanted to talk about this, you know, this isn't going to help me clean it. They expect $50 from me, but you can get it for 10. Let me see what it says here. I see nothing to take on the world. Proudly proclaim to the world that the people that see your refrigerator, unless this is one that could go on your car. With our best gift to save lives, receive I Stand with Israel magnet for your best gift of any amount. And so even $10, you can get this wonderful magnet. It looks like a refrigerator magnet. Proudly proclaim to the world that you stand with Israel, displaying one of a kind magnet on your car, at your office, in your home, removable 4x4, full color. Okay, you know, it's the arrogance that this whole Israeli lobby has. You know, the issue here is there is, like, the Israeli lobby, the pro-Israeli lobby, there's no other country that puts themselves before, you know, is expecting American citizens to put Israel before themselves. And I know there's some evangelical Christians who think they're saving Jesus' place of birth or something, or whatever the Israeli part of the, you know, the 75% of the Bible is the Old Testament and that stuff. But, you know, Israel is not a good ally to America because they do nothing for America but cause problems. Like in the Middle East, a region with oil, there is maybe some benefits strategically to have an American base there, you know, have an ally there. They spy on America more than any other country and have done a bunch of dickish stuff, the USS Liberty and, you know, assassinating JFK, you know, like shit like that, you know, 9/11. Like, so, I mean, you know, some things that are known factually and then things that we suspect that they might have been a part of, right? But no other country is saying that you should put our country in front of America, right? Which is what they say in these, you know, these things all the time. You know, like, why should I really want to support any of these other countries? I mean, people, yes. Individual people spiritually, you know, I whatever I, you know, praying for them, whatever I could do, you know, I mean, I don't have the capacity to do anything really financially for anybody, right? But, you know, in terms of supporting individual people, especially spiritual people, you know, people, really only spiritual people, you know, that's all who I would care to support anyway, that would, or potentially spiritual people, you know, people who can connect to the divinity within them. animals. I mean, I'm a big supporter of animals. Like, we have a pasture, we have some area where we have lots of various creatures. We have bodies of water, ponds, small ponds where there are frogs and fish and things, and things that we've created, and creating a good place for animals. Not covering the place with pesticides and poisons, and sometimes feeding animals, sometimes whatever it is the birds get into our chicken feed, these kind of things. A big proponent of supporting the animals and environment, things like this. But to say that I should somehow, why would I want to support this country particularly, but any other country? I don't believe in governments. I don't believe in this shit. I don't know how the government treats, because you're not paying to the people of Israel. You're supporting Netanyahu and his fucking leadership and his cronies and these war fucking mongering motherfuckers over there. Like, I don't even support my own government, my own politicians, in these things. I mean, I'm not working against them, because I believe that God will eventually take care of these problems. But I'm not supporting you. Like, why should I support you? Like, why the fuck should I support you? You the worst pieces of shit in the world, in terms of the politicians and the leadership of Israel, after what you just fucking did to Palestine and what you're doing to like the good people in your country, and like just everything that you represent. I mean, I don't support Trump. I don't support any of these. I don't support any political organization or any of these things in years. I mean, and I barely supported him. I don't think I don't think I've ever given money to a political organization, right? And so, I might have I voted, a couple times, 5 times maybe in my life, but I don't believe in supporting these people. These are the worst fucking people. They are people with power and corrupted pieces of shit, and I don't support governments and whatever it might be. Removing a government's a bad thing, but and I'm really not a fan of Israel at all. So that's my personal thing. But even just in terms of any person, why would you support this country? Why would you support some other country? Why would you give your hard-earned money to support some foreign country? I'm not even talking about what they did with Palestine or the history between America and Israel or any of these things. Like, why would any American give their hard-earned money to support any other country, and particularly this one? Anyway, so the arrogance here is just off the charts. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this one up here with 2 more little things on Trump. Let's start from the beginning here. All these videos are muted.
Late last week, on the day after Christmas, Donald Trump went on a conservative radio show and boasted about his administration's deadly and possibly illegal airstrikes on civilian boats. However, it was not Trump's celebration of potential war crimes that caught people's attention. It was this moment.
Every time I knock out a boat, we save 25,000 American lives. We just knocked out, I don't know if you read or you saw, they have a big plant or a big...
Okay, that's not true. And we went through this already. Like, he just fucking makes shit up and lies, and, it doesn't matter anymore for fucking his people. I mean, his supporters, but the people around him, it's just accepted that he does stuff, because, those boats aren't going to make it to America. With fentanyl, it's a long drive. They need lots of gas. They're entering in American waters. There's a better way to do it. And most of the fentanyl comes over the border in Mexico. But anyways, let them keep on going here.
Facility where they send where the ships come from. 2 nights ago, we knocked that out. So we hit them very hard.
This casual admission, a land strike on Venezuela, would mark a dramatic escalation in Trump's so-called drug war. But we still do not know exactly what happened here. The White House, Pentagon, and CIA all refused to comment on, let alone confirm, Trump's claim.
Okay, so of course they didn't, because it's like an act of fucking war. And, he's supposed to go through Congress before he get into a war, and, you can get into some military action, but not like a full-blown war. But he's lost his shit, right? He's without a filter. When people get older anyway, they just don't give a fuck. They're dying. People couldn't just say whatever. Like, old people just say whatever. And some of that has to do with dementia, and, Trump's losing his shit. But he's always been a fucking loudmouth, and, he's incapable keeping classified secrets and any of this shit. Lucky for his administration, he doesn't read his security briefings. He doesn't listen to this stuff. He doesn't know it. So he doesn't have a sense. He hasn't leaked shit because he hasn't read shit, right? But if he read it, he leaked it. He would leak it. And now with his dementia, he gets older. And he's a nightmare. Like, he's a fucking national security nightmare. And he just admitted that he, bombed Venezuela. And this is all about Venezuelan oil. It's a bullshit war. Shit's going on in China right now. We're heading into 2026. And I don't know how, this doesn't escalate into something. I don't know how there isn't big consequences for Trump's mental incompetence and his just, false bravado bullshit that he does. Anyway, so there's one other thing here with Trump.
Brand new insights today into the health of President Donald Trump. The Wall Street Journal reached out to the White House with reporting that said those close to the president say he is showing signs of aging. This led the president to give the Journal an impromptu interview, an interview that was published today. Now, the president told the Wall Street Journal his excessive hand bruising is caused by the amount of aspirin he takes, saying it's more than his doctors recommend. He says he regrets getting advanced.
Look at his fucking face here. It's just, look at his fucking beady eyes. This looks like he's got Joe Biden eyes, dead fucking eyes here. I mean, he's not looking good. I saw Don Lemon says a thing on this. I'll probably cover it in the next video. Just to, make fun of Don Lemons and Trump at the same time. It's always a great, thing that we get to do here.
Imaging because it generated so much scrutiny over his health. He also denies falling asleep during events like this one you see here, saying he's simply, quote, blinking. While at the same time, he admits he's, quote, never been a big sleeper at night. Now, we also learned the president will not be exercising as part of his New Year's resolution. He called it boring. CNN's Elena Treen.
Not for me. He's a gross, fat, job of the head motherfucker. He's in much better shape for than he should be for a guy who regularly eats McDonald's. And so, it came out, there was a guy he used to work with Trump, and he kind of wanted to be a comedian, and, I don't know how much of it was true or not. He said Trump was shitting his pants, and some of the things were confirmed. Some of the things might have been exaggerated. This guy worked with Trump on The Apprentice and on the Miss USA pageants. I covered this guy. And, it's hard to say what the guy was saying was true. But he said Trump ate McDonald's regularly. He ate shitty food. Way back when on The Apprentice, we saw him eat McDonald's food with, he got sponsored by McDonald's, went in there. You can't eat that shit. And I don't even know how it's just, when you see these movies where people are in their 60s or 50s and they're drinking alcohol at noon, they're having fucking martinis at lunch, your body just doesn't recover. Your liver's fucked. You're eating toxic shit. I mean, your organs start to betray you. And then that leaks into your brain, all that shit. When your liver isn't detoxifying your food and alcohol, that stuff, and it just deteriorates your brain. Your whole body's has got these various parts, and when the parts work together, and if certain parts stop working, it all affects everything, including your brain and these other things. And so it's amazing he's doing as well as he has, because he's not a healthy person, and he's a toxic person spiritually, and you can see right now he's starting to fucking unravel. He's starting to leak, right? He's starting to, he's starting to bleed. All this shit's starting to fall apart on him. And, right now, we've been conditioned for Trump to be this fucking guy. And so he gets away with a lot that other people wouldn't, because everyone's used to Trump being a piece of shit and just, being obnoxious and rude. And these are things he's got away with saying, horrific things. But eventually, the dementia is seen. We saw it with Joe Biden, and Trump isn't going to be hidden away. If they start hiding him away, that would mean he's broken down significantly, because he's not going to let them hide him away, right? And that's very problematic for, a variety of reasons, because when this guy starts shitting himself and falling apart in public like Joe Biden did, and Trump has no friends in the Republican Party. I mean, everyone can't wait for this guy to go away, including all the Trumpers, the people around him. They know he's a walking fucking disaster. I mean, they might kiss his ass at the cabinet meetings. Nobody loves this fucking guy. And a lot of them realize that they've committed career suicide by being a part of this shitty administration, right? So, like, okay, so I want to revisit a few things here. And read a comment. The comment is also revisiting something. So this is a comment. The hammer is back as Candace versus Alex. It's serious dementia Trump and TPUSK. I do not like Trump, however, he seems like he was much more years to live. He has much more years to live. He does not have dementia. He is a liar. And the word much and the word liar are spelled. Well, the word much is spelled M-Y-C-H. And again, I have dyslexia, so, but liars, I-L-I-E-R. I mean, if you see my titles, you see that I misspell words all the time, but Jesus Christ. Now, this person might not be an English speaker. English might not be their first language from the name. And so there's this guy who, in the video, he was an expert on a certain type of dementia. He said Trump has 2 to 4 months to live, and, the rest of it. And this person's calling that guy a liar. Trump is going to deteriorate. It was going to happen. We know it's going to happen. Someone that old should not be president unless they have incredible genetics, because the presidency takes a toll on you. And you can see it in Trump's face. You can see it in the way, all these things. And he's entered into Joe Biden territory. And I think he's going to go quickly. And, and it's going to be pretty obvious, and that's going to be a whole nother fucking thing, right? And, only time will tell. Like, we don't have to worry about it because, we don't have to worry about any of this stuff. The system's going to collapse. But I want to go back to the stuff with whatever that guy's name is that I covered earlier. Jimmy Dore. I watched one video of Jimmy Dore, a couple of them, when he began defending Candace, and he immediately started to appear constantly in my feed. You can tell the people that YouTube's trying to pimp out there, and that's not a badge of honor. Like, if you're a real truther, and they did the same thing with Candace, and X is doing the same thing with Candace, recommending me all the time. And so, there's certain people that they're pimping out. And so they're the ones in the, so-called truth-adjacent people who they want you to see, right? They're not real fucking truthers, or they wouldn't be recommending them and the rest of these things, right? And that Ryan guy, whatever his name is, don't tell me, don't care, don't need to know. He had this beef with that dude, Dan Crenshaw, the guy with the one eye. And I watched a video where he was talking shit about the guy, and Dan Ryan was suing him. And then another video popped up, and I clicked on that. And now I'm getting all, this is a month ago. Like, I just clicked on, the first one was a month ago, and the second one, the follow-up was, they were supposed to have an interview. Dan Crenshaw was, being weaselly about the citing a release form or something. And I watched a little of it. It sucked. And so, but originally I found out about that guy because he interviewed the security chief for Charlie Kirk. And, these are people that get pimped out. Tucker Carlson, these people that you look at one video of theirs, and the next thing you know, you're seeing every time you pull up a YouTube feed, they're recommending one of their fucking shitty videos. And so, that's kind of speaks for itself. But, the guy is putting out a shit ton of videos where they're defending Candace and just claiming that everybody that's against them is, there was a video that was on Jimmy Dore's channel. It looked like somebody else was putting the video out, some other commenter, somebody other than him. And it was about all this money that's going into slamming Candace Owens. She's part of it. Like, my wife I showed her the video with the guy yesterday, the Mitch Snow, and his wife, and, she was listening to it in the car, and she could hear by the voices that how fake it was, like how bad acting, it seems all scripted, and they're like, hey, performative, like, like it's like a bad TV commercial, local TV commercial, where people are just reading the script and they just, hey, I want to tell you about my carpet store. My family and I have been in carpet for 125 years. We always say nobody likes carpet like us. Ha 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 ha. Shit like that, right? you know, these local TV commercials where people like have no acting skills or no whatever. And that video like looks like that, and you know the whole thing looks. I mean, it's, you know, I don't think any of it's accidental in the way that Candace is doing this, and people say it's a distraction, and you know I don't believe that that's necessary. Like, you know, that just you don't have to distract people who are fucking NPCs. The majority of people are just brain dead, and so you know, and there's so much shit happening out there. There's a new crisis every day, so I don't, you know, like. Maybe to divide the right wing to whatever extent, but you know, either way, there's nothing there. Like Trump is going to implode, and so that's going to happen. And there's no, you know, once Trump dies or is disappeared, once Trump retires or whatever happens, when Trump is gone, there's no clear leader, and the Republican Party is going to eat itself, right? I mean, it's like there's so many different people, all ego based. You know, the MAGA people have, I mean, it's not a real movement that's going to sustain itself. Remember the fucking Tea Party? What happened to the Tea Party? A lot of people who are in the Tea Party are now in MAGA, and they keep on coming up with this stuff, and it never works out, and it's always bullshit. Just like the liberals and the conservative Democrats go at it, and the conservative Dems always win because there's more of them, and the liberal socialists will never be elected, and you know it's just the same old fucking bullshit. Nothing new, you know, no real new wrinkle for the most part. Even if it is, it's all fake and contrived and the rest of it, right? But I guess the one thing I want to talk about is how that they always have these taglines. Like when Jimmy Dore said, "We must be getting close. She must be getting close," with all these people reacting. There's all these taglines and talking points that people use. You know, if somebody is accused of something and they're on the left, they're totally guilty. And you can say the same thing for the left or the right, but let's stick with the right example here. You know, this is across the board. You know, the people that are your enemies, when they're accused of something, they're totally guilty. And even if there isn't any accusation, like you immediately think, oh, this is the Democrats, or the Democrats are going to be involved with this, or this is how, you know, it's immediately that thing. But when somebody that you like or you're a fan of, there's immediately these talking points. Oh, the fucking fake news again. You know, these types of things. And they, you know, the people will say the repeated lines and all this kind of bullshit. You know, nothing fucking original, nothing fresh. You know, just repeating and regurgitating the same old bullshit talking points from either side. You know, just, I mean, nobody really caring what the truth is or looking into the truth. Many people in the truth community are like that. And it's not about getting to the bottom of it or any of these things. It's just how fucking dysfunctional everything is, right? How fucking inhuman and how dishonest and like unnatural and contrived it all is. Like, that's the real problem here. This is the real issue. Like, it has nothing to do with the way people are acting and what they're doing, and especially these famous people. Because you know that famous people suck and people with power abuse the power. And like, this has been known for centuries. It's not anything new. You know, these people all were manipulative, double-dealing people that, you know, the power and money is everything to them, and they'll do anything to keep it or get it. And, you know, they're always manipulating and rigging the system in their favor. This has gone on for thousands of years, right? But it's the, you know, way that everybody has of just dealing with it, and not like, you know, it's the deception behind it, and it's a deception that people have who are, you know, supposedly all the victims, the collective victim, the people who are getting fucked over by the so-called elite people. They'll do anything to avoid the truth, right? Like, it's just, I mean, the average schmo and even people in the truth community just, you know, will do anything to avoid the truth, and then, you know, and then somehow be bummed out about it or get upset about it, pick sides in battles and things that have nothing to do with them, when collectively they're getting screwed over and they're fighting amongst themselves. And like, this is, you know, it's part of the playbook, but Jesus Christ, it gets old watching it after a while. Anyways, let me wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.